Where are friends? What are friends for?
No, really, what are friends for? It is March 18th, 2021, and we are recording a special episode today. I am Pallavi Sastry.
And I'm Pallavi's best friend, Gabrielle Ruiz. It has been time. It is time again. It is now time to stop Asian hate. And we started our relationship of what are friends for in the tipping point of Black Lives Matter last summer in 2020. And we were debuting the season, and we were just like, yes, we continue to have conversations that are hard. And I remember saying, we have so much work to do. We have so much ahead of us when it comes to Black Lives Matter, especially for conversations within our friendship, that when come this March of 2021, where there's a lot of hope because we hit the 1 year anniversary of our isolation reality and hopefully a resolution and an ending point now with vaccinations happening, and there still is hate going around the world.
And we have heard the parallel of racism being just as deadly of a virus. And stop Asian hate, yes, but also let's call what happened in Atlanta and the 3,800 reported hate crimes in the last 1 year against Asian Americans. Let's call it what it is. That is domestic terrorism. And especially in Atlanta, that's very specifically domestic terrorism, which is by definition a string of attacks in multiple locations. It wasn't once. It wasn't a fluke. So I think that's where all of the anger and the rage comes from, which is completely justified. And it's yet another time to amplify the voices that are hurting from this.
As well as giving them time and space to hurt, to feel, to heal. It's yet again another opportunity to, as friends, as bystanders, as supporters, to figure out what to do and how to do it. Not just right, but how to do it with how to support specifically and how to help with changing this narrative that is so incorrect without feeling performative, without feeling guilt, without feeling it's all about you, without making it about you, and the fact that there's other minorities saying through social media, like, just insert the minority, and it's like it's their month to be hated, and it's in their month to have this crime acted upon them, and it's just like, yes, and everyone deserves some space and the floor, but at the same time, everyone else who is not being specifically discriminated against also needs to do something about that, and we need to support from right and left, not just from front and back.
We wanted to amplify the voices of our friends in our inner circle, our Asian friends in our inner circle, without having to ask them to do extra work and, without asking them what to do. I think we have the tools necessary in order for us to take action. And one of those things is to amplify their voices and how they're feeling in this moment, because the fear is really real. Our consulting producer and a very dear friend of mine, Kathleen Cho, she's definitely been very vocal about how this is completely hitting home for her. Her two parents are elderly, and it could easily be one of her parents who gets attacked on the street. And we're not talking about police violence here. We're talking about civilians hurting other Americans. And that's what makes it even more painful.
Right.
In her post, she wrote in the caption, "I'm angry and sad and screaming inside this morning and can't stop thinking that those women were probably around the age of my mother, my aunts, cousins, and friends, begging and pleading, make it stop." And her picture that she posted was Nick Cho asking the media, specifically CNN and MSNBC. It says, eventually you're going to read the names of the 8 victims in Georgia. Take an extra few minutes and put in the little bit of effort that it takes to make sure you pronounce their names correctly. It's not that hard, which makes it hurt so much more when you don't. Please. And I mean, I have a lot of feelings about that, but we can. I'd like to come back to that. I think there's other ways that we can amplify Asian voices and see Asian Americans as Americans. That's like always been the thing that I come back to. Is like, you know, I'm clearly South Asian, so it's a different part of the continent, but we are put into the same category at times. And you know, for us, what we always say is like, you know, we're put in the model minority myth because we're perpetually made the foreigner. And so people tend to ask us where we're from before they even ask us what our name is. And then when we say what our name is, it's too complicated for people to care in how to address us properly.
Therefore, you're not equal.
Right. Just like on a baseline conversational level.
Right.
It
This
means
is not
that-
a job interview. This is
Yeah.
not. This is not signing a mortgage.
No.
This is not big life altering topics or trying to qualify for something. This is just every day for you.
And I think it's it's a minimal thing that we can respect and give people at least these names in particular, these 8 names, because they are no longer with us, that the least we can do to respect their humanity is to say their names properly.
And learn. And do better.
You know, we talk a lot about how there's so much progress and forward movement and how we're all trying to come together, and especially in our industry, you know, I think, you know, as much progress as there is, I think sometimes our patting ourselves on the back can be a little premature. And so this types of thing really like brings us back down to reality of like how much more work there is, even though we can still celebrate all of the progress happening, right?
Yeah.
Like, for example, again, just coming back to the whole seeing Asian Americans as Americans, it's like, you know, Minari is a film that I highly recommend everybody seeing. Like, literally any person could put themselves in that family's shoes. Any person, because it is about an American family. Yes, they happen to be Korean. Yes, they happen to speak to each other in Korean, but they're farmers. Like they're building a farm in Arkansas. That's what the movie's about.
Yeah.
And it's like,
It's American. It's an American story.
right. And the Golden Globes put that film in the foreign language category because apparently it's because 80% of the movie is spoken Korean. Even though the filmmaker is American, the actor you know, Steven Yeun, the lead actor, is American. It was made in America, funded by an American company, and then released by an American company.
And then put in the foreign category.
That's right.
Oh, man, that's a lot of work to do. And it's a group of people that make this a decision. That's the other thing, too. It's not just one person that is a complete idiot or is like dug under or is like hiding underneath a rock. It's a group of people where no one either realized, recognized, or spoke up.
Yeah, well, yeah. And also, it's just like letting things go unchecked.
Uh-huh.
That group of people, there was multiple people that made that decision that nobody checked anyone.
Right. And if they thought it, they didn't speak up.
Right. And and on a different level, going back to the violence, is exactly what happened when our previous president started saying the China virus and the Kung flu. That no one checked him. And he kept doing it, and it spread.
And it's not a joke. It's not a joke and it's not funny. And here we are a year later with the poison that was spread and it grew like a weed. Mm-hmm. And I still stand by what we posted, and even on our WAF podcast Instagram, that we will not stand by as silent bystanders while the Asian community is being attacked. We won't. We won't. Not here at WAF, not here as friends, not here to you. And we will be there for you. And I do admit, again, that the conversation of how do you support your friends that are of the Asian community, that is right and appropriate, correct, without being performative, without being exhausted, without being numbed, because it's a slippery slope. Even when we were texting this morning, we already had 2 episodes slated for today for us to record, and I brought this up. I said, if we did it for BLM, and not did it, see, again, like how you word it. Mm-hmm. If we wanted to use our platform to not be silent bystanders, if we wanted to use our What Are Friends For platform to amplify these voices, should we bring on guest friends of Asian descent? Should we ask them to quote? Should we get them to leave us a voice message? And you were just like, hey, we didn't ask that of our Black community friends to do that, so we shouldn't do that for them as well, because they all are dealing with it very differently, and we should just ask them how. Mm-hmm. And I'm so glad Kat asked us to use her Instagram post, because that is how she's communicating and how she's dealing. And also taking a break at the same time, probably disconnecting from the news. I don't know what she's specifically doing, but it was another checkpoint again. And I don't think I was coming from a performative or anything, but it's just like trying to figure out how to do it. And I think a lot of the other communities that want to help get like, it's kind of like shiny new object syndrome. You know what I mean? Like you see this new thing that you have to just fight for, and then you will exhaust yourself, because we are a year past the BLM tipping point, almost, because it was the summer of last year, but like with the pandemic and with all these life-altering moments for the entire planet, we're having time to think still. We're still having time to think, check ourselves, and change.
Yeah, so I think using the social media and our Insta friends or reality, like the reality right now is that, you know, we can find the answers and find the tools we need. And, you know, whether we realize it or not, social media is work that the Asian American community, our Asian American friends are doing. So if we look at, you know, Leland, who's a guest on our show this season, you know, if you look at her March 4th post, or if we go to, you know, people we admire like John Chu, he listed GoFundMe.com/AAPI as a place we can donate. I work with Asian Americans Advancing Justice every so often, which is doing amazing work on the ground. And, you know, Daniel Day Kim posted about addressing Congress today to lobby for legislation that condemns violence against Asian Americans. And let me just clarify, like when you lobby for legislation to condemn to condemn violence, it just means you want it in writing that it's not okay to do this. Like it's not, you know what I mean? Like this,
like
so,
it's not like action points.
Yeah, like you want it in writing that this is not okay.
Like let's just agree that we're saying the same thing versus twisting it to compromise another community.
Right. And what can we do? We can donate, like we said. And we can also go to places like ihollaback.org, which has a free bystander intervention training. It takes an hour, and it teaches you better tools, or equips you with tips and ways that you can recognize and see and act on any sort of incident that you might see on the street. If you witness any sort of violence or hate crime or anything like that, you can get involved safely, which is strength in numbers. That's safety in numbers. So that's something we can actively do.
And that is our lightning off of this special episode. I mean, we didn't want to do any of the flair and any of the the joking, because this is not a joking conversation, but this is also a friendship conversation that we should be having with our friends to listen as well as activate ways to support instead of feeling lost on how to support and then making it and then putting that on social media. That's just not helpful. It's not like, what do I do? How do I do this? This is unfair. That's just how I feel as a friend. For me, it's like, if I just put out that feeling terrible that this is happening and then feeling doomed, you know what I mean? Like for that to me, for me, does not give me any sort of action points to be productive in changing it. And for some people it does. Like, this needs to stop. That narrative or that sentence can initiate action. I get that. But for me, it just doesn't work. For me, it's like listening to these, instead of just like reposting or instead of just liking, you actually go to ihollaback.org and sign up. Like sign up and just take an hour out of your time to help make a change. That's how you can, by actually reading what's going on, what your friends are saying and what your friends are requesting versus calling and needing a different version to feel like it helps you. That doesn't necessarily help them, but you listen to what they need. You listen to what they are suggesting. And that, to me, is how Insta-Friends or reality works.
And, it's the constant question that I think will always keep us checking ourselves is like, how did we get here? Right? Mm-hmm. It's like, if we keep asking ourselves, how did we get here? And then we go and find the answer to that question. Like, usually we can find the action items there as well. Yeah. It's like, because this is not new. This is not new. So if a crisis happens in America, we know historically that there is an immediate obsession with figuring out who to blame. Who do we blame? Where's the foreign entity or outsider or someone we can point a finger at to say, this is your fault? Mm-hmm. And then America vilifies that race or group very quickly after that. And that becomes one of the deepest roots of the problem, because we say that it's an isolated thing. It's because of it's just where the virus is from. If that's not really what this is. It's like you're stoking something that already has roots, and now it's just growing faster because you were able to like find a thing to throw onto this whole population of people.
Oh, and my condolences to those families.
Yes.
Oh, it's just awful. It's just absolutely awful. And I'm not saying like I don't ever think about how terrible it is. Like, I do, and it's something that I can't fathom. And I'm hoping and praying for those families and those friends. And also, I will be taking action. I'm looking forward to signing up for the free bystander intervention training that our guest friend Javier Munoz posted. And it's literally all over. If you go look for it, you'll see it. And I highly suggest that if you feel like you, quote, can't do anything or don't know what to do, that's something. That is something. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And there are all kinds of petitions that we can sign, especially, I'm sure with the lobbying that's happening for this legislation that I mentioned, just keep an eye out, and take care of each other. It's exhausting.
We support you. It's exhausting. And one day, every day, we just hold each other accountable as friends, as a community, to support each other and stay safe, you guys, if you can, and support each other and protect, as bystanders, protect one another. Stand up for each other. That's what friends are for.
All right. We will talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening, guys. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being a part of this conversation. And we will see you next week or at another time on What Are Friends For? Bye.
Bye.
1, 2, 3, 4.
This episode was produced by Team Access Productions and Fashionable Inc. Our supervising producer is Philip Ascension.
Our consulting producers are Kathleen Cho and Rose Harwood.
Lead production assistant is Anna Danaker. Digital content director is Susie Cabello. Our production assistants are Daniela Aredia Vega, Soler Olsen, and Megan Billadou.
Our podcast artwork is created by Aishwarya Sukesh, original music by Joey Sherman, and special thanks to Irresistible Force Publicity and Hari Zabitala.
Please remember to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast wherever you're listening now. This helps our show's visibility and helps us keep making it for you.
And find us on all the socials, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok at WAFF Podcast. That's WAFF Podcast. To find links to our exclusive vodcasts, live shows, shop merch, or even text us, visit waffpodcast.com.
We truly appreciate you all checking in with us online. But you know that friend that you've been like, I really haven't checked in with them in a while? Go do that.
Yeah, go do that now.